This is Bengals Central Podcast, keeping you up to date on all the Bengals news. Brought to you by ProFootballCentral.com. And now, here are your hosts, Sean O'Donnell and Chris Rowling.
Welcome to the Bengals Central Podcast, found exclusively on the Pro Football Central Radio Network and brought to you by Onnit.com, delivering everything you need to thrive. I'm your host, Sean O'Donnell. With me, as always, my co-host, Chris Rowling. And before we get into everything today, we have a bit of exciting news to announce. You all have heard over the past several shows, I've been talking about the awesome new Bengals Central T-shirts that have come in. They're looking good. You've probably seen the pictures up on Twitter by now. Well, we had our first ever Bengals Central T-shirt giveaway contest on Twitter. And the stipulations of the contest was to follow Bengals Central, follow Pro Football Central, and retweet our little blurb about the contest out. And everybody who did that, we randomly drew a name, and our winner, who we would love to congratulate here, is Matt Fink, and you can follow Matt Fink on Twitter at Pastor Matt Fink. He won a brand new Bengals Central T-shirt, courtesy of Big Frog Custom T-shirts in Cincinnati, Ohio. And you can find Big Frog on the web at bigfrog.com/Cincinnati. We're going to have another contest in the very near future, so be sure to stay tuned. Follow Bengals Central on Twitter, and we'll let you know when the next one's coming around. So without further ado, let's get on to the show. Chris, we have some last-minute happenings here before training camp is set to kick off later today.
That we do. Today will mark the first day of training camp, and we've got plenty of news to discuss already, including injuries, a release, and some head-turning comments from team owner Mike Brown, as you probably know, a man who typically keeps to himself. But first, Sean, go ahead and kick us off with the news of the release.
Yeah, the news came about. I can't really call it surprising news. The Bengals announced that they have released guard Travell Wharton. And Wharton, as everybody probably remembers, was a big free agent acquisition from the Bengals before last season. And unfortunately, Wharton went down and was lost for the year during a preseason game. He actually never played a regular season snap with the Bengals. And the writing on the wall for Wharton's release was pretty much all there. Clint Bowling came in last year as a last-minute replacement for Wharton, and he did a really phenomenal job for being kind of thrown into the fire in the last minute there. Bowling was actually rated the 11th best left guard in the league by Pro Football Focus in 2012. So with Bowling still kind of learning and developing, really you can figure that he's only going to get better with another year under his belt. So, that being said, the Bengals, they're not going to go ahead and keep Wharton as a backup because he would be an insanely expensive backup, I've got to say at this point. He was the team's 9th highest salary cap number at over $3.3 million. And by cutting Wharton, the Bengals actually saved $1.6 million against the salary cap this year, and Wharton actually earned $4 million in first-year payments despite never even playing a game for the Bengals. So, it's good that they just went ahead and cut their losses there. They've got guys that they can put in Wharton's place now, and the team, I think, made a very smart move to let Wharton go, and they did it early enough where Wharton will still have a chance to try to get back to being healthy and maybe go through a training camp and latch on somewhere with another team. Chris, what were your thoughts about the whole Wharton scenario when you heard he was released?
Well, this one was pretty easy to see coming. The writing was on the wall after the team let go of Jamal Anderson. They're clearly cutting veterans who have some cap this year, still kind of clogging up space for injured reserve and maybe a contract extension for Geno Atkins, things of that nature. Wharton, there was really no point in putting him on the PUP list. We heard the arguments, well, he can start at guard or he can back up at tackle, start at right tackle if he needs to. in my mind, there was no opinion to keep him around in that capacity because you have a rookie like Reed Fraggle and other young offensive tackles on the roster who can already swing and back up those spots. So for me, he was just taking up $1.6 million, like you said. It seemed to be kind of forward thinking in how they're handling the franchise right now, which is what you want to see with so many big guys needing extensions still, like Geno Atkins. So Wharton, we haven't heard if he's even healthy. No point in keeping him around. Business as usual so far, strangely enough, here in Cincinnati. The next piece of news we have concerns injuries. This is good injury news. Cornerback Dre Kirkpatrick, offensive tackle Andrew Whitworth, and center Trevor Robinson are not on any injury lists. For Whitworth, this is a no big deal. He's always, he's been in these camps. He doesn't need these camps. He's coming off a bit of a down year, but he's healthy. That's what's important. It's very important for Trevor Robinson, who will do battle with Kyle Cook at the center position. It's very, very important for Dre Kirkpatrick, who essentially missed his rookie season, is looking to bounce back, may or may not earn his way into the number 2 corner position across from Leon Hall. Corner is probably one of those positions that has the most question marks surrounding it, thanks to Adam Jones' legal trouble, the continued health issues with guys like Brandon Gee. There's just not a lot of depth there. So Kirkpatrick is healthy. He's going to get his reps in and hopefully continue to stay healthy. That's the big piece of news here. All 3 of these guys are going to be participating starting today. Sean, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Chris, you said it, man. It's great having these 3 names and 3 rather big names for the team being healthy from the get-go of training camp. I love the fact that Andrew Whitworth is healthy and he can practice. He had his knee cleaned up over the off season. It's something that has been plaguing him for a while, and he even attributed it to possibly being the cause for a little bit of a down year last year. So it's great to see that he's really recovered from that and he's ready to go from day one. All signs indicate Andrew Whitworth to be back to his true form this year and, have a stellar year at that left tackle position. Keeping it along the lines of the offensive line, Trevor Robinson, as you said, Chris, he's going to be doing battle with Kyle Cook to try to earn that starting center role this year. And as an undrafted free agent last year, he was another one of those guys who just got thrown into the fire in the offensive line there. And he did some things well, but he did many things poorly. And, he wasn't graded very high by Pro Football Focus. I mean, neither was Kyle Cook, neither was Jeff Fain for that matter. In fact, the center is probably one of the weakest points on the Bengals offense at the moment, but having Trevor Robinson healthy and able to participate this early is a great sign for the Bengals. Hopefully they can get a little bit more stability from one of these players out of the center position this year. And as you mentioned, Chris, Dre Kirkpatrick is probably the biggest news of these 3 guys being healthy. Dre Kirkpatrick said over the offseason that his goal is to start. That's what he wants to do this year. He wants to earn a starting gig. Obviously, the number 1 corner spot is not up for grabs. That is Leon Hall's for the foreseeable future. But, he's going to do some battle in training camp with veteran Terrence Newman, who had a great year last year. Newman can't be overlooked here. Kirkpatrick's really going to have to earn this role. He's really going to have to actually beat Newman in training camp over the course of the preseason to try to get into that starting lineup. And I think it's going to be a great battle. I really hope Kirkpatrick can stay healthy because, as you said, Chris, that's the big question mark. Can Kirkpatrick actually stay healthy? And if he does, it will really solidify the corner position. And I think that we're going to see some great battles in that area of the team through the cameras of Hard Knocks this year. So moving on, and we'll keep this with the injury theme here. There's a little bit of news coming out regarding right tackle Andre Smith. And Andre Smith is currently on the active non-football injury list due to a calf injury that is reportedly not serious. So the first thing that really comes to mind with this whole Andre Smith news here is we finally know, or I hope we finally know, what was the cause of him missing OTAs and missing the mandatory minicamp. We'd like to think right now that it's this calf injury that maybe has been nagging him for a while right now. I don't know if that fully explains why he wasn't there working on the side, but it's at least a little bit of news regarding his physical health right now. And the one thing that concerns me is, I mean, maybe he was working, with a trainer on his own somewhere, which I really hope he was, because as we know, a huge kind of fault of Smith is his weight issue. He struggles with maintaining a solid weight, and he tends to kind of tip the scales a little bit. And if a calf injury has been nagging him and he hasn't really been working as hard because of it, there's a possibility that, he could be kind of over his limit once again. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when he actually does report to training camp and how he's looking, and to see how far along, he's come since he's re-signed with the team in late April. Chris, what have you heard about the calf injury of Andre Smith, and what's your take on the situation?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. This guy cannot keep his name out of the headlines. If you'll remember, it was a couple weeks ago that Smith was, being defended by Marvin Lewis on a podium in front of the media by saying he was missing because of personal issues rather than just calling an injury an injury. Not really sure what the motive was there, but if we want to look into it, personal issues could be his conditioning issues leading to an injury. You've seen it happen before. It definitely wouldn't be the first time, and it's not all that unexpected if that's what happened. We don't know for sure. We may never know for sure, but to me, this is business as usual with Andre Smith. Coming off the best season of his career, number one ranked right tackle by Pro Football Focus, absolute mauler in the run game, got a new deal after ridiculous claims on the open market, and now he's hurt. Now, it's Joe Reed, Cincinnati Enquirer, says it's not serious. That's fine. What is serious in my mind is this a work ethic issue leading to the injury? That's something we may never know, but it's kind of important to know. So I think he'll be ready by the season, and I think the Hard Knocks cameras, unfortunately, will dive into this issue a lot to give us some perspective right away if they can. So looking forward to that. Let's get on to the meat and potatoes, what everybody's been waiting for here. The quotes from Mike Brown. The man had a little interview and caused a little stir. He doesn't talk often, but when he does, it's interesting and controversial, especially this time. I'm just going to go ahead and read this quote here. An interviewee was asking him about his franchise's struggle with image and why, basically asking him why he took all these risks and why he decided to go on Hard Knocks again. Brown had this to say. The thing I do regret is how it came to make us or put us on an image that I don't think was ever anything but a very small part of what we were, and sometimes not a part at all. But if you want to blame somebody, blame me. In recent years, I've tried to go the other way. I've just thought it's too heavy a price to pay, and we were going to go back to square one and bring in here guys that were sound people, end quote. Basically, what Brown is saying is he saw other teams taking character risks for the sake of talent, because those teams were beating up on the Bengals in the 90s. So he shunned his father's ways of good character guys and started taking some risks like a Chris Henry. But now he's seen the negative attention, the negative character issues, all the spotlight that's been on this team, and he's decided to reverse that, go back to his father's, I call it rules, I guess, when it comes to character issues and things of that nature. And you're starting to see the public perception shift. It's happening very, very slowly. That's a choice the media has made, and that's fine. But the point is, Brown is taking ownership of this failed strategy. He's admitting it. He's admitting it publicly, and he's also using the extra attention of Hard Knocks to attempt to further shift the view of this franchise back into a positive light. So to me, a noble effort for accepting Hard Knocks and trying to get this image back in the proper spotlight, and B, even more props for admitting his failed strategy and doing something about it, and it shows on and off the field. Sean, your thoughts on this quote?
I've got to hand it to Mike Brown for this quote here. Obviously, he's not been a popular figure in Cincinnati for a very, very long time. And we've seen a shift in the Cincinnati Bengals as a franchise, as an organization, over the past few years. And a lot of it has been kind of realizing that Mike Brown is kind of releasing that stranglehold that he had on the team for so long. And it seems like he's willing to listen to other members of the organization and share responsibilities. And lots of these things that he's been doing has really worked out into the Bengals' favor. I mean, we all know that head coach Marvin Lewis is a genius when it comes to personnel. I mean, he's made some fantastic decisions, obviously, which are showing recently with the Bengals and their success over the past couple of years. And you've really got to attribute that to Mike Brown and saying, okay, Marvin, you know this better than I do. I'm going to go ahead and let you kind of take the reins on this one. And this statement right here that Mike Brown just made is right in that same realm right there where, he's going out there and he's admitting, he said, you know what, I screwed up, guys. I apologize. It was my fault. But I'm trying to make this thing better. I don't want to be viewed as this dictator of sorts that I have been over the last, couple of decades here. And, I really want to make a solid effort to, bring you guys a football team that, you can enjoy every Sunday. And, him bringing in Hard Knocks, that's a very smart move when you look at the players on the Cincinnati Bengals roster right now. You've got young, hungry, no-nonsense guys who come to work every day and want to push each other to make each other better. You don't have any divas out there that are constantly looking to grab attention from a camera. I think you're going to see a very, very talented and driven Bengals football team through the cameras of Hard Knocks. And I think it was a tremendous decision by Mike Brown and Marvin Lewis to bring Hard Knocks back to Cincinnati and really show the world that, this is a football team that is ready to take the next step and, dare I say, become one of the more elite teams in the league. So let's move on to another quote from a quickly becoming infamous Mike Brown interview. This one, a little bit of a different perspective by the Bengals owner. So I guess Mike Brown in this one, he's talking a little bit about concussions here, and I'm just going to go ahead and read the quote because it's really the easiest way to get what he's saying across. And he says, "No one really knows what concussions mean, especially as you grow older. It's not only not proven, it's merely speculation that this is something that creates some form of dementia late in life. Our statistics, the ones I've seen anyway, don't show that. I'm not convinced that anybody really knows what concussions bring, what they mean later in life, if anything." And that was an interview that Mike Brown had with Joe Reedy of the Cincinnati Enquirer. And that statement leaves me a little speechless. I'm really not sure what to make of what Mike Brown is really trying to convey here, because quite honestly, this is a statement. Obviously, there's been some happenings of late that have been linked to concussions that players have sustained throughout their playing days in the NFL. Certain tragedies that don't need to be brought up here. And really what Mike Brown is doing is he's just kind of stirring the pot right now regarding a very, very sensitive issue. And, and he's basically calling, the studies that have been done on concussions merely speculation. I mean, this is basically the type of statement that sets him back a couple of decades. Even after that last gem that he had, about, taking blame, wanting to show that, this team's turned around, all that. Maybe the team's turned around, but apparently Mike Brown and his ways haven't quite done that 180 yet, and he puts out kind of a mess like this. He doesn't want to bring bad publicity to Cincinnati, but he may have done so with his own comments here. Chris, when you hear this quote, I mean, what's your reaction to it?
Here's the thing. Mike Brown is one owner out of 32 in the NFL, a league that is getting sued into oblivion by former players for all these kind of issues that they've been having. I'm not sure who exactly asked this because there was multiple media members there, but I'm not exactly sure what kind of answer they thought they were going to get. Because regardless of what Mike Brown believes, regardless of what statistics he's seen, he's not going to come out and say, yes, I think concussions, these issues that our league has created through our physical, violent game, leads to issues later in life. He's not going to say that. That's going to be used as a quote in every lawsuit for every former player. It's not going to happen. So, this to me, it's Mike Brown being an NFL owner. Is this truly what he believes? Maybe. But to me, the point of this is, if you had asked any other NFL owner in the league the same question, they probably would have given you some similarly vague answer, trying to dodge the question or something of that nature, because, again, this is a league that is having very serious issues with its image in more ways than one, and all these former players suing it, it's just not doing it any favors. So the last thing Brown's going to do with a question like this is feed to that fire and cause more issues. Does it look bad? Does it look bad for the Bengals? Sure, depending on what side of the fence you fall on. To me, there's a bigger issue here, and Brown is kind of being a pawn, I guess is the way I should say it. Sean, I think that'll wrap us up with the news segment. I think we're on to the mailbag now.
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into the mailbag. We've got a handful of some interesting questions this week. Some of it regarding what's going to happen with some of the younger players in training camp, and some regarding some veterans. So let's get in the mailbag and see what everyone from Twitter has in store for us today. Our first question comes from Brian Haynes. You can find Brian on Twitter at BT Haynes. And Brian asks, which rookie will shine the brightest this year, Giovanni Bernard or Tyler Eifert? And, well, we're comparing two rookies who are very different, obviously. One's a running back, one's a tight end. But they are both brought in to be these explosive offensive weapons for Andy Dalton and the Cincinnati Bengals offense. And I think it's going to be difficult to really judge which of these guys is going to shine the brightest, because I think they're going to do it in a different capacity. I think Tyler Eifert and Giovanni Bernard are going to be utilized two very, very, very different ways. But they're both mainly going to be used as chess pieces to create mismatches against the defense. If I had to pick one, I'm going to go with Giovanni Bernard, and that's just because you can shift him around the offense a lot more. I mean, he'll split time with Benjarvis Green-Ellis in the backfield, but he also has great receiving ability, and he has the ability to motion out wide and maybe take a linebacker with him and create some mismatches for the Bengals passing game, as well as he can be a very nice short yardage security blanket for Andy Dalton in the passing game, and hopefully will allow Dalton to take less sacks by being able to dump the ball off to Bernard when he gets into some trouble. So if I had to pick one of these two guys, I'm going to go with Giovanni Bernard for 2013. Chris, what's your take on this?
I'm going to go kind of a different route, I guess, not in my selection, but in how sure I am. Without question, to me, it's Giovanni Bernard. You have a guy like Tyler Eifert, if you put him, like you said, he's going to be used to create mismatches, but at the end of the day, he's maybe the third or fourth option in the passing game. There's only so many balls to go around. Giovanni Bernard, on some plays, is going to be the number one passing target, and on a lot of plays that aren't designed for him, is going to be the number one passing target out of the backfield as a safety valve. He's also going to be directly taking handoffs as the focal point. I mean, statistics, production, whatever, I think Giovanni Bernard is the guy that's going to shine more in his rookie year. Long term, hard to say. Barring injuries, it's hard to say long term. But for me, Bernard is going to be used to create a lot of mismatches. He's even going to line up at wide receiver. He's also going to be, the focal point of an offense. I think you'll see Eifert have a lot of mismatches with teams focused on Jermaine Gresham and A.J. Green, but you're also going to have defenses accounting for Giovanni Bernard in the backfield with Ben Jarvis Green Ellis on the bench, and that impact in terms of shine is important to me as well, because that completely changes how defenses have to approach this Bengals offense compared to the way they did last year, which was not account for the running game at all, because Ben Jarvis Green Ellis could have the widest lane possible, and he'd struggle to get 10 yards at times. Now they might have to stack the box. Now they have to account for it. So even if we're talking shine as in how it helps the team overall, defenses have to play the Bengals much differently, I think, because of Giovanni Bernard. Move on to the next question here. We'll bounce to the defense. This one's from Adam Dickerson. You can find him on Twitter at AYDEE1178. And he wants to know, do you think Malaluga improves this year, or do we end up moving Burfitt to the middle? This is an easy one for me. Malaluga improves if the coaching staff moves him out of the middle. Malaluga is not going to suddenly, at least in my mind, become an above-average pass defender. He's not, and he's going to continue to get picked on. He's been picked on by opposing offensive coordinators the past 2 playoff games. They come after him. They target him for a reason. If you recall, in Malaluga's first 2 seasons, he was a top 15 strong-side linebacker each time because he'd play the first 2 downs, help stop the run, which is something he's very good at, and then come off the field in passing situations. Move Malaluga out of the middle, he improves. If he stays there, absolutely not. Pretty cut and dry in my mind. Sean, your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of go the same way. I think he improves dramatically if you move him to the strong side. I think that's where he's best suited. As you said, he's actually very good against the run. He has, I guess it's an easier gap assignment for him over on the strong side. I guess that's what you can attribute it to. I don't think he's really cut out to be in the middle. He's found in space one-on-one way too much, and he really struggles to take good angles against an offensive player that's even the least bit shifty. And we've seen him whiff time and time again. Now, on the flip side, I really don't think that he can get any worse from 2012. So I mean, it depends on how we're looking at his improvement here. He was ranked dead last, basically, in the NFL in middle linebackers last season. So obviously, he's not going to get any worse. So he's either going to not improve at all, or he might improve slightly if the Bengals decide to keep him in the middle. I think the best move, though, however, is to slide Burfict into the middle and move Malaluga over to the strong side, allow him to share time over there with James Harrison, who, let's remember here, James Harrison is 35 years old, and he's not a 3-down guy anymore. And then you bring in Emmanuel Lemur over to the weak side, who is, to me, the best possible talent to bring on the weak side. He's the epitome of a weak side linebacker. He's gained some weight over the off season. He's making himself into a 3-down guy, and I think that's going to be the best trio of linebackers the Bengals could possibly put out there to get the best potential out of each of these guys. So let's move on to the offensive side of the ball here, which obviously tight end is going to be one of the more talked about positions this year. due to the emergence of the aforementioned Tyler Eifert. This one comes from Tristan Shiflett, and Tristan asks, what is Orson Charles's role since he is not going to be a tight end anymore? And, excuse me, I forgot to mention Tristan's Twitter handle, which is at BengalsHooday8 on Twitter. Sorry about that, Tristan. So let's get back here to Orson Charles. Well, right now, what we're looking at is Orson Charles as the role of an H-back. And that doesn't necessarily mean he's not going to be a tight end anymore. He's still going to have plenty of the tight end responsibilities, but he is going to be mixing that in with a lot of fullback responsibilities as well. So he will still line up on occasion in a traditional tight end, in line with the offensive line, but he'll also be found as the up back in the backfield as well. And basically what an H-back does is an H-back is responsible for blocking for the running back, pass protection, and then also being an extra receiver out of the backfield. Orson Charles is a terrific blocker despite being a smaller tight end, and he's got some great hands, and he provides another really nice security blanket for Andy Dalton out of the backfield. And then if we're looking at jumbo packages here to take it a step further, we could be looking at 3 tight end sets basically where you have Jermaine Gresham and Tyler Eifert on the line with Orson Charles in the backfield, and they all go out as receivers, which is going to be so very confusing for an opposing defense. So look for Orson Charles to still be utilized heavily in the offense, but just in a different way in that H-back role. Chris, what's your thoughts on Orson Charles this season?
Yeah, Sean, I'll keep it quick. You kind of knocked that one out of the park. Like we said in the past on the show, past couple of episodes, really Orson Charles is more of a fullback now, pound for pound, one of the better blockers on the team, going to be used in that capacity. Don't count him out as a tight end, though, because he'll absolutely be used in that capacity probably more often than you think, just from out of the backfield. It's a hybrid thing that we're starting to see now. You can't keep sticking to these conventional terms. For me, he's there. So next, we'll bounce right to another question we've seen a little bit here that's causing some confusion. Not really confusion, but it's something a lot of Bengals fans have been wanting to know. This comes from DK Lass, once again. And you can find them on Twitter at DERRIKKLASSEN. That's a mouthful, and I apologize if I messed that up. Would it be possible for Eifert to be tight end 1 during week 1? It's absolutely possible if an injury happens, but other than that, no, it's not possible. I think it depends on how you're defining tight end 1 at this point. Will he be the number 1 tight end on the depth chart? Absolutely not. That's Jermaine Gresham, Pro Bowler. Not that means anything anymore. Still a very, very good athlete. Needs to work on his catching. Could be one of the best in the league. Could he be tight end 1 if we're talking maybe fantasy terms, in terms of him seeing more targets? Absolutely, because teams are going to be giving more attention to Jermaine Gresham than the rookie. But to me, Gresham is still your number 1 tight end going into week 1 unless an injury for some reason occurs. Sean, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Chris, I agree with you there. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of quell people's expectations on Tyler Eifert right now really quick, and not to be a Debbie Downer here. But let's keep in mind here all of the star wide receivers and tight ends from college to make the transition to the NFL. Not many of them are very, very successful in their first year in the league. I think a lot of Bengals fans remember how great A.J. Green was in his rookie year, and it's kind of shifted the perception of how well a rookie receiver can do so early on. It's very rare that an A.J. Green happens. I mean, I can't really think of a receiver who did so much as a rookie maybe since Randy Moss. But quite honestly, I mean, there's not many out there. And tight end, it's really the same thing. You're learning a whole new lingo. You're learning new schemes. You're learning the speed of the game. You're trying to improve things such as blocking, which, Tyler Eifert didn't do much of and still isn't very good at, so he's still got a lot to learn. I would quell the expectations of Tyler Eifert right now. Do I think he's going to be a star at some point? Yes, I absolutely do. He's got all the tools to do it. But let's remember that Jermaine Gresham is the veteran here. He's used to the NFL level. He's been playing at it for a while. And does he have the drops? Yes, he struggled with it at times. He still struggles with his blocking. He'll be working on those things during training camp, but he's got the chemistry with Dalton. He's got the trust of the coaching staff. He'll be featured over Tyler Eifert. He'll always be the number one tight end on the depth chart probably throughout the entire season until, Eifert can really, get his feet under him and get used to the NFL level.
Football fans, check out the official T-shirt apparel shop for BengalsCentral Check out BigFrog.com/Cincinnati. That's BigFrog.com/Cincinnati. Big Frog offers 24-hour turnaround and no minimums. At Big Frog, you think it, we ink it. Also visit them at their fabulous store over at Anderson Town Center, 7426 Beachmont Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45255. Who day?
So let's go ahead and flip this back over here to the defensive side of the ball for our last question. And this question comes from Dawn Renee, who's actually a pretty big Steelers fan. And you can find her on Twitter at SteelCityDawn. And being a Steelers fan, of course, I think she was obligated to ask us this question. She asks, how long until the commish, Roger Goodell, suspends James Harrison? And, as we know, Dawn being a Steelers fan, she's very familiar with those circumstances. I believe that James Harrison sets aside some of his salary each season for fines and things like that. I think James Harrison is the kind of player who plays how he wants to play and really doesn't care too much about the repercussions. He is very acquainted with getting fined and getting suspended. And I think he probably will get suspended at some point this year. Obviously it's going to be due to, what he does on the field, but he does kind of play with a little bit of a target on his back, I should say. And Chris, I actually think this really fits in very well with that Malaluga question from earlier, because if Malaluga is getting reps on the strong side, it's kind of a preventive measure here in case Harrison does get suspended. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of give like an over-under on this. I think that's how I'm going to treat this question. And I'm going to say week 6 is the over-under when we see a James Harrison suspension. What's your take on this, Chris?
Oh, it's under. I'm fully expecting suspension. This is a guy on the commission's radar. Likes to make an example of him. It never works. Harrison says publicly it never works. Goodell knows that. He's watching him with a microscope. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it happens in week 2, Monday Night Football. In Cincinnati, Pittsburgh Steelers come to town, his old team that they couldn't work out, a deal with. I could fully see some kind of revenge, knowing Harrison's mindset.
Sorry, man, I was just saying that's such a good answer. Why didn't I think of that, man? Continue, Chris. I'm sorry.
I'm just waiting for the revenge, and it helps. I was writing about James Harrison today. But I will say, if it doesn't happen in week 2, Pittsburgh Steelers, it's going to happen in week 4, the Cleveland Browns. This guy loves beating up on the Browns. What this guy did to Colt McCoy and all those other players, man, for whatever reason, it always seems to be against the Cleveland Browns. And for me, it's going to happen before week 4. If it's going to happen, I think that's just my gut feeling. Knowing him wanting to get back at the AFC North, particularly Pittsburgh, I'm expecting at least one suspension. I don't know the length. I don't even know what he's eligible for at this point. He's probably rewriting the record books as far as that goes, but I'll be watching closely for it. But on that note, we'll end our mailbag segment here. be sure to give us a follow at BengalsCentral on Twitter, and make sure you shoot us your questions. You'll appear live on the show next week.
Absolutely. Also remember to check out our sponsor, Onnit.com. That's ONNIT.com. We have a very easy way to get you guys some great deals from the folks over at Onnit. Just simply type Onnit.com/footballradio into your address bar, and you can receive 10% off your next purchase from their website. They've got some great stuff. We really think that you should go over there and check them out. Also, check out Big Frog T-shirts at bigfrog.com/Cincinnati. We're excited about our shirts. They look great. If you haven't checked them out yet, the pictures are up on Bengals Central's Twitter account. We think you guys should go over there, check out our Twitter account, look at the pictures, and be sure you're following the account. That way you will get your updates on when our next T-shirt giveaway is going to happen. Speaking of our T-shirt giveaway, we just want to say congratulations once again to Matt Fink, who was the winner of the first ever Bengals Central T-shirt contest. Give him a follow on Twitter and give him a congratulations. He is at Pastor Matt Fink. So thanks everyone for tuning in this week. We'd like to thank Big Frog Custom T-shirts once again in Cincinnati, Ohio, for hooking us up with a T-shirt deal so we can get them out there to all of you. Thanks for listening. As always, be sure to scour the ProFootballCentral.com network for all the latest and greatest news for every NFL team. For Chris Rowling, I'm Sean O'Donnell. Hooday.
The following podcast is a part of the Pro Football Central Podcast Network. Check us out at ProFootballCentral.com.
Cincinnati's back in the orange and black. See the natty on the map, baby, tell me where you at. In the jungle, who they bringing it back to the jungle. And the game day, yeah, the jungle's back. Got the natty pack in the orange and black. We're stacked to the track, so I'm back behind long work, chugging down cases. And a can brewed in 88. Who they? Super Bowl, spirit of the icky shuffle. Feel it rumble through the king of the jungle. Thunderous roar, hear us soar across the river to the Newport shore. The Fountain Square, the great American ballpark. Down at the banks above the riverfront graveyard. The Paul Brown Stadium, the Nat is awakened. And we're making a statement to the rest of the nation. Cincinnati's back in the orange and black. See the natty on the map, baby, tell me where you